And welcome to the super fun, awesome, happy time mod vertically challenged pedal show. My name is Gabor.
Hey, welcome along. I'm Alex. This is the Mod Dwarf for mod devices.
Yes, vertically challenged.
Yes. I'm going to check it out, see what it does, give you a bit of an overview, and show you all about it. But if you hit like and subscribe first, give us a thumbs up, ding the bell, comment, subscribe, all that stuff.
It'd be radical.
It'd be awesome.
Yes, dandy even. Right from the start, this was sent to us by the good people at Mod Devices. We've done tons of videos with Mod Devices before. There's one, you know. So today, what we're looking at with this, so this is the Mod Dwarf, the latest sort of product. We've done tons of video with the Mod Duo, which was the original product.
Yep.
Today, sort of more like an introduction kind of to it. There will be multiple videos. This is just a what does it do kind of video, right? And just some basic ideas. If there's anything in specific, in particular, that the Mod Dwarf can do that you want us to do in a video, let us know in the comments below, and we'll try to include that in future videos. All right. So, Alex.
Yo.
The Mod Dwarf.
Hello.
What is it?
It's a bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, same as the Mod Duo,
Yeah.
the original one. It can be a amp sim, like an effects processor.
Yeah.
It can be like studio effects. It can be modular synth and also like synth engine type stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a dog.
That's a turn dog.
Hey, puppy. And there's probably other stuff. Drum machines now, I think.
Drum machines. You can do all of it. Well, two of those things simultaneously in two completely separate effects chains and lines, because you have two inputs and two outputs which are completely separate. You can use them in a stereo environment, or you can use them as two mono things. So I mean, you could, for example, Alex could have a mono guitar rig, I could have a mono guitar rig. This is the brain, and then we could have like a MIDI controller, for example, that, you know, one of us uses the pedal, the other one uses the MIDI controller to control it. So it's two completely separate things. You can use them separately, or you can use them as one.
I'd just say it falls under the category of a production tool.
Yes.
So
yes, I would say that too.
Covers lots of bases. So
now, one of the things with Mod Devices is you have this. So I've got my laptop here as well, which is kind of their user interface. Probably the easiest way to do things is by doing it on the computer. You can do a lot more stuff now just directly on this. You don't necessarily need the computer. The computer makes it easy to set up all the patches and all that sort of stuff, but then you don't need to have the computer attached. And now also with the Mod Dwarf, you can do a lot more on the actual device itself. So let's have a quick look at the device, right? So we've got two ins back here, guitar jack, phono jack inputs. We have mini MIDI capability in the back. There is a network connection where you can link multiple devices together. You have a power. You have a USB-A and USB-B input. So currently the USB-B input is running to the computer. You could, for example, and I have done it and it works, you can get like for example, a Bluetooth dongle.
Oh yeah.
Plug it into the back and then use your iPad, for example. Because you don't need an app to run it. This is all browser-based. You type in an IP address, which in this case was this, or often it's just moddwarf.local, for example, or modduo.local. And it's all browser-based. So it's all based within your browser. And then you've got the two outputs in the back. And you've got two little lights up the top here that show you whether you're clipping inputs and all outputs. Now, you've got three knobs, which are, what are they called? Continuous controllers? So there's no end to it.
Rotary
encoders, which are also buttons.
Yep.
And you've got these buttons down here. Now, that relates to what's on the screen. So, for example, at the moment we don't have anything set up, but you can any of the parameters of any of the effects that we're going to get to, you can assign to any of these knobs, right? So it says here knob 1, knob 2, and this is, for example, the gain at the moment. So that's set to, if you look at, I don't know if I can see it on here, it's moving, right? So this is the overall output gain. And then you have 3 pages. So you can see it goes from 1 to 2 to 3. 3 pages of 3 additional knobs. Yep. So you can have up to 9 knobs that you set up basically per this page. Because then you have the other page too down the bottom. You have this button, which at the moment it just says 1 of 1. You can scroll through pages, and each page has 2 buttons assigned to it. So you've got foot switch B and foot switch C. We'll get into all that later on. If you push both of those, you have a tuner. Now, this switch down here, you can say whether you want to mute it or not, so whether you want to tune, you want it to be silent tuning or not. And with this, you can select whether you want input 1 or input 2 to tune, right? So you can differentiate between the two. Now, here you can see it's got 1 of 2, so this is actually, you can scroll through pages. And here you can actually have, you can play backing tracks. So you can put backing tracks in here, and this is a page where you can press play and play backing tracks back, right? And this is a tap tempo. And here, for example, you can see you've got things like the beats 4/4. You can change it to 3/4 or 6/8 or whatever. You can also set the beats per minute and the clock source. So clock source meaning via MIDI, for example, you can have an external. So let's say your computer runs the whole show, runs everything. You run MIDI out of the computer into that, and you want the computer to be the host and the source clock. You can set it to that. It's currently set to internal. And you also have Ableton Link. If you use Ableton, you can use it with that as well. Then you hit both buttons again and goes back. These two buttons, if you push them both, currently doesn't do anything because you need to disconnect it. But if you disconnect it, we might do that later on quickly as well. You actually scroll through the different pedal boards or snapshots. So you get a list of them and you can kind of go through them all. And then you have this button, right, which is just a momentary thing at the beginning anyway, which gives you input gain. So I think all three of them are the same. They're all linked together for your input gain. So if you have a hotter instrument or so, you can change it. And you can actually also manually change 1 and 2 separately. But if you push this, and down the bottom here it says settings, if you press settings, it now goes into the global settings, right? So you've got, for example, this is your audio inputs. You can go input processing. So for example, you have a noise gate, you can always have on. It's like it's global settings. You can either go back and then it goes back to this, where you can scroll through all the different things, or if you go into one of those, you can press next and it just scrolls through all the different global settings. So things like your headphone volume. You also have output processing, so you can have compression permanently on the output if you so choose. You also have, again, you can choose the global clock source, whether you want to send clock as well, and how you want to send clock. So do you want to send clock via MIDI? Do you want to send it via USB? All that sort of stuff. And then going into basically all brightness of the display, which is fantastic when you're doing videos with it. So generally all the global settings, and then you press exit to go back to your kind of performance view.
Very cool.
So there's lots of talking there. Now, if we quickly look at this, right? If we look on the screen, just again to give you a quick idea what it is. So you've basically got this pedal board here. On the left, you have, this is input 1, this is input 2, and this is MIDI in. We'll get into MIDI briefly later on as well. And then over here you have output 1, output 2, and MIDI out. So you can send things to go, if you, for example, use an internal clock here, or even if you go into the modular kind of side of it and there's a clock part of it, you can then send that clock out to other things, or any kind of MIDI out you can do with this. I know, again, lots of talking, but... So basically, it's opposite to normal pedals. It goes left to right instead of right to left, but I think on a computer screen it kind of makes sense. And then all you do is you kind of just unplug these things and plug, cables in between pedals, right? Down here, you have currently doing what's called constructor view. You also have the pedalboards library. So this is what you would access via those two buttons, or actually sort of banks. That's what you would access with those two buttons. But because we've got the computer connected, that's been disconnected at the moment. You also have File Manager, where you can put things like backing tracks, for example.
Yep.
You can also load IRs in there. So that's all that stuff in File Manager. And then you have the plugin store, where, I don't know how good the internet connection is here, but you connect to your, you can get all the plugins, and most of them are free. Some cost money, like the Tri-Reverb, but most of them are free, and you can just, there's CV stuff, there's delays, distortions, dynamics, all that sort of stuff. So there's tons of things. Whew. So that's basically, lastly, I forgot about that. You have this down here, right? So you have, these are all the kind of the effects. So you can go into all, hang on, and you can set this so it goes down when you're not on it, or you can pin it so it stays up, or pin it so it stays up. this is currently set to all, so this is all the plugins, all the effects you have. But then you can just search for control voltage. So this is all CV related stuff, which you can use almost like a standalone modular synthesizer.
Yep.
But like we'll see in one of my pedal boards that I made up before, you can actually use CV also to manipulate controls on pedals. You have all the different delays, you can have all the different distortions and all that sort of stuff. And it's just about getting used to what is what. Then down here, again, you have settings. You have, if there's updates, it'll tell you down here what the updates are. You have how much CPU power is being used, and you have how much of your RAM is being used. This is also MIDI ports. If you plug something in, you can assign different things you plug into the different MIDI channels and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's all that.
Very cool.
Cool. So the way we have it currently hooked up is we have one side, which is this one, the second output, goes straight into Logic. The other side, channel 1, is currently going through the amp, or through this Mastronix amp switcher amp into the speaker. So you have basically an amp on one side, and you have just going direct in on the other side. So should we just quickly, just to show something, and I know there's lots of talking, but it's timestamps, should we just quickly make it a 2 amp setup? So we have the amp,
Sure.
and we put in an amp sim on the other side, and then have it panned left and right, and then maybe just apply a couple of effects to it.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so we've got the, like I say, got the amp sim on one side and the real amp on the other side, so it's a stereo rig with only have one amplifier.
With only one amplifier.
And of course you can put effects in front of both or in front of one and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so let's use something simple. Let's use this supersonic, right?
Sweet.
So basically what we're doing is, it's quite handy to have here at the end to have this like an output level thing, because depending on what instruments you use, whether you go direct, the output can vary quite drastically, so it's good to have, I think it's not a bad idea to have like this output thing at the end always. So all we're doing now is basically we're plugging in input 1, because we're coming into input 1 here, so the guitar's plugged into input 1. We're going into this amplifier. Then let's use, you're more a vintage guy, let's use this vintage amp sim, cab sim, sorry. So we're plugging the amp into the cab sim, and now we're plugging that, and actually let's instead of having that stereo one, because we're going into 2 separate things, let's under utility, let's use 2 volumes. So we have separate control over the direct output and the amp sim output, because one side now, which is the amp sim, is going, which one is it? Output 2.
Output 2, yes.
And then so that's now the amp sim, and we have, which is loud.
As you can see.
It's very loud, so we can turn the volume down a bit on this. So we can give it, do you want a bit more gain, or keep it clean?
No, crunch up.
Crunch it up. So now let's add to that, from the same input 1, we just want a straight direct signal that goes to output 1, which is the amp. So now you technically have a stereo.
Yeah.
So now what we can do, so now we have basically a stereo rig, even though we only have one amp because we're using this. So what we can now, for example, do is, let's, do you want delay, reverb, tremolo? What about a tremolo?
That could be cool.
Let's do a nice stereo harmonic tremolo.
Sounds fancy.
Called Harmless. So what we can do is we can stick that here, and then one side goes into here.
Yep.
And the other side goes into here. So it's all just kind of plugging these cables in and out. So now you should have a stereo image harmonic tremolo.
so on and so forth.
So on and so forth. And then
Yeah.
each of these plugins, again, very quickly. So let's say you want to find out more about you just click on it, it kind of zooms itself in. And then up the top here, you've got a little eye. You press that, it gives you information about it. So it shows you what version it is. If there is like more online information, like a manual and stuff, it'll show you all that stuff here as well. And it just says what it is, basically. And it gives you also MIDI control information. So if you were to use a MIDI controller, you can kind of get right into there. Then you also have this little settings thing here, the little kind of gear thing. Once you go into this, so now, for example, we have all the knobs and everything. You can also, for example, save your own presets on there that are saved specifically for that pedal, not for the whole pedal board, but just for that pedal. You can do things like, for example, that tremolo, you click on the little, this sort of slider looking thing down the bottom here. So for example, this is where it says on off. You click on that, you click on device, for example, and now this brings up a whole page of things. It looks more complicated than what it is. Basically, you have all these different pages, which is the thing where you flick through this, right? So you can, we want it in page 1, and we want to assign it down the bottom here. Let's say foot switch B, which is this one. So that knob now, right?
Yeah.
By pressing save, this has now become the on-off switch.
Very cool.
For the tremolo, for example. You can also very easily, if you want, for example, the rate, right? You want that rate attached to a knob. So let's go, for example, knob 1 on that page. And you've got to press save always. That's always the thing. So now this knob has become the rate for the tremolo. And so on and so on. So you can assign any of the buttons you want to any of these, and then you have 3 pages of these per. So for each 2 effects, basically, you have here, because as you scroll through different things. So for example, if we do, let's do another effect just for the fun of it.
Yep.
Just quickly.
Ambience, maybe.
Ambience. What would you like? Delay or reverb?
Let's go delay.
Delay.
For funs.
And let's go stereo as well. So what about this one, maybe? Stereo, echo. Do you want it in front of the tremolo or after the tremolo?
After.
After the tremolo?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on, so I just got to move this. That's the only thing, is you've got to move things sometimes to fit things. But once you get used to that, it's not that big of a
cool,
deal.
though. I'm sure you're up to the challenge.
Yeah. And then you just plug that into there. Plug that into there. Plug that into there, and plug that into there. So now let's turn that off, and now we have that delay. So for example, now first thing we can do straight away, so we can say we want the on-off switch, but now we want the on-off switch on page 2, just to show. So all you do is you go here, page 2, button B, right? So now the on-off switch is, so that now you have 1 of 2 here, so you can scroll through, and this has now become the on-off switch.
Okay. Should we hear the delay?
Yep. Oh, hang on, let's do ping pong.
Ping pong.
And yeah, go. And if you want to be really specific, you can go, if you click on that little gear, it actually gives you milliseconds. So it goes from 1 millisecond to 2,000 milliseconds. And then you've got level, and you've got an LFO, which is the LFO that does the ping-ponging and stuff like that. So I mean, just to give you ideas, right? So you can do that. And we've assigned that to this. Let's say we want to assign the right level. We want to assign it now, again, page 2, we want to make it knob 1. And we want the right time. We want to make it knob 2 on page 2. But we want left time. I'm just, we want to see, now here you've got the sub pages. That's these, when you do these things, right?
Yep.
So for example, what I want to do now is I want to have what was it doing? The left. Okay, we want that assigned to subpage, the next subpage, knob 1. And we want the right level. we want to assign that to the next subpage. So for example, now you have the first subpage gives you the right level and time. The other side gives you left level and time, right? So you can, you know what I mean? It's just, you have the freedom to put it wherever you want to put it.
Very cool. Well, of course we want more level.
More level.
And I can do it from here.
Yeah, and you can see it move here. So if you're moving theirs,
My God, it's possessed.
it moves on the screen.
Spooky, huh?
Yeah. And so on and so forth. And then you can put distortions in front of the amp, you can do this, you can do that. There's tons of stuff you can do. It's almost limitless.
Cool.
Right? So I mean, that's just a sort of brief introduction of how to put it together. And then if all you want to do, if you want to save it, all you do is you press save as. You name it what you want to call it.
I'm going to call it Dave.
Dave's...
Just Dave.
Alex's... No. Alex's board called Dave.
Dave doesn't even get a capital D.
I'm giving Dave a capital.
Doesn't deserve it. No, you can stay this.
No. It's getting all capitals and an exclamation mark.
Wow.
Alex's board called Dave. So now it's called, as you can see it up the top here, Alex's board called Dave. Sweet. What you can now, for example, do, so if you want to have full access to it on here at any time, what you can do is you can go into your banks, right? And I, for example, here I have a thing called Gabor. If you click on it, this shows you the two that I've saved on here. So they're saved on there, and I can at any time recall them. Now what I can do is I can move Alex's board Dave into here.
Yes.
And you can also move it around. So by just moving it up and down, you can move it where you want it to be in position, right?
Cool.
The screen's too small on here. But you can move it down to here, so it's down the order, so you can flick through it. And then now if we were to press those two, they would be listed there.
Very cool.
And that's as simple as that is. So should we now quickly just have a look at a couple of at those two boards that I kind of pre-designed, and then go from there.
That's good.
All right, so we're going to look at my Doom board now. My Doom board, which looks like this. And for my Doom board, I'm going to use my awesomely doomy guitar, which I think this is the first time we've used this in a video, haven't we? Yeah, I think it is the first time we've used it in a video.
Yeah.
This is my aluminium, and it's aluminium neck guitar by Bagley Guitars. The neck is a Bagley Guitars neck, Vander Guitars body, lots of other stuff. There will be a video on it soon. This is my kind of doomy guitar in C standard tuning. And so what I did with this Doom board now, right? So we've got the one input, we've got a whole bunch of effects, and then it splits again. One side is the normal amp, real amp. The other side is this Onyx, which is a cool amp. Actually, I did a full video on the Onyx amp here a while ago, on the old Mod Dwarf, which is a cool amp, with a whole bunch of effects, and it's kind of doomy, but I did a few extra little benefit things, and we'll get into that. But let's start off with, this is what it sounds like, just all the effects are off. So this is the real amp on one side, amp sim on the other side. Once I turn the volume up, it does that. Did I mention C standard tuning? Okay, now, so for example, let's just start off at the beginning. So what I did, for example, is one of the things I did, we've got these 4 pages here, right? Let's just start with that. I put a fuzz there. There's a guy, I forgot what his name is, but it's Remain Calm is his sort of name on here. This is the fuzz. He does his pedals under the name Remain Calm, and they're really cool. They're really quirky, interesting pedals. He did one, actually, I did a video with the avocado here,
that one, yeah.
that stutter effect, which is really cool, which I was going to put in it, but it didn't. But so this is his fuzz, and it's a cool fuzz, and it sounds like this. And it's got the cool gain in it. It's a cool fuzz, angry fuzz. Then he does this other thing, which is kind of this filter, weird filter thing called mud. Let's put that in front of it. So that's those. Then I also have, so what I did here, this is like a studio style effect reverb, right? Which actually I used this stereo X fade thing, like it's a crossfader thing. It's a dual stereo in, one stereo out crossfade thing. So I wanted it in super stereo. So this is, so I have this under this thing called stereo. So this is now this reverb, which is a massive reverb. Maybe overdriving the input level a little bit. Let's turn these down a smidge. It's a bit crunchy, that reverb at times, but it's a cool reverb. Massive reverb. Then I also have this delay in stereo. It's just a one repeat, but it's with that LFO. Now if you add the reverb and the fuzz, oh no, that's not the fuzz.
Look out.
The fuzz is here. Then it gets big. The stereo effects are cool. So then I've got a stereo flanger that I've put there as well, which I just turn on.
Yep.
It's maybe a slightly hotter signal than it should be, but and then one of the other really cool things. So let's turn this, let's turn the fuzz off, and let's turn the reverb and delay off. The other really cool thing is this. It's a granular thing. So this is like a delay stutter kind of thing. But the thing for me was, it was too regular, like for a stutter thing, you want more random stuff. So what you can do, and what I did, is you can actually use modular stuff.
Yep.
And the modular stuff twists knobs for you, basically. So what I did here is, and if I zoom in a bit here, yes. So I used this CV clock, right? So CV clock just to create time, which I want the time to be random to anything else, right? So it's just a random time. And that random time goes to 2 random CV generators. Now the cool thing with that stuff is, there's this thing up here called Manage CV Ports, right? You click that, and then it comes up with this stuff, and so this is called random, and this is called random 2, right? So you can name it whatever you want to name it. Now, once you do that, this will show up in, if you go, for example, let's zoom out a bit. So if I now go to show you this, if I go into here, right? So I have the gain density and the grain density and grain length. If you go into these, you have this thing called CV, right? And you can now, there's both of those CV, the control voltage that comes out of those random generators. You can assign that to control the knobs. So I did that. So what now happens is, and I made also the clock thingy, the MIDI clock generator, I turned that into a button. So CV clock, if I press this, you can sort of see it now on here. It's starting, one of those knobs is moving around now, right?
Possessed, I believe it's called.
So one of them, it's on if you turn that on. Now the other one, that says random, so if I turn that on, that now controls the second knob. So now by doing this, this now goes, it's like someone twists a knob. So this random stutter thing is turning into this kind of weird, randomly generated thing. and I can turn one of those controls off, so only one of the controls is being used. Or both. So now, for example, if we turn on, let's say, the delay, and we turn on the flanger as well. Oh, the delay's still on. Oh yeah. So that's, I mean, that's just an example of a board I quickly put together that just, I mean, it's limitless what you can do once you start applying the CV stuff. Now there's something else you can do as well. All right, so the last example we're going to show for today is this. So I called it keys and guitar. Why do you think I called it keys and guitar, Alex?
Is it because it has bass and drums on it?
Yes.
Oh my god.
No, because it's got keys and guitar. So one of the cool things about the Mod Duo and Mod Dwarf is that you can also use it as a sound engine, basically. So you have things like different drum sounds, synthesizer sounds. In this case, I'm going to use like an electric piano sound. But at the same time, you can also use a guitar. So what I've got going here is basically I've got one side, the top here, is an amp sim that runs into the harmonic tremolo again, because I really like that, into two different quad boxes, into a delay after that, then into a looper, and then in stereo into the output. But at the same time, via the MIDI control here, and via here in the back, all I did, and it works really well.
Yeah,
you plug that in. It works sort of. You don't have to do anything. You plug it in and it works. So with this Arturio little key step, plug it in via the other USB port into here. It powers this as well. It does come up here. So if you click on MIDI ports, see Arturio key step 32. You can tick it. It worked before without ticking it, but it knows that the Arturio key step 32 is here. So this now. Uses this electric piano NDA sound here, where you have also different options and you can control different things, which then goes into this TAL reverb, the same one we used in the Doom board, and that also goes into the looper. What I'm sort of trying to show here is that if you, let's say there's two of us, but you're a one-man performer dude. You can, for example, put down a keyboard loop. Put the keyboards down, grab the guitar, and it's all going through the same two output channels. So for example, I've got this looper. And I'm going to do a full video on this looper because it's meant to be quite a good looperlative LP3 looper. It's quite involved. You can do quite a few things on it. Actually, both the guitar and the keyboards are plugged into it. It's like two loopers, so you can actually select two different tracks and all that stuff. Yeah. But I get into all that a lot later. I basically have this set up to be record and overdub, and that's play and stop. You can actually select with this, you can select a track. So you can see it here as I'm moving that. See the green thing goes around a different track. And then I also have undo. So if I don't like what I did, I can undo it. But so basically what I can do is I can put down and I'm not a keyboard player, but I'm going to put down a keyboard lap. So 1, 2, 3, 4. and so on and so on and so on. What I could also do technically
Yo.
is you could record. So, for example, let's just quickly do it, just to show. So you got the second track here as well. So now we're going to the second track. I'll start. This is the first track. I'll start playing it again. If you go to the second track, you could just strum the chords, for example, and I could record the second track with you playing the chords. I can stop the keyboard because it's two separate loopers. So it's quite involved. I mean, just to show the looper as well. But I mean, the idea is you can be someone who's like a solo performer. You can have a keyboard set up and a guitar set up. You could also, if you do an acoustic guitar, or you could have, an electric and an acoustic guitar. You could be a duo, one plays keyboards, one plays guitar, and it's almost limitless what you can do with it.
There you go. And it's also, if you haven't realised, it's the size of your hand, like that big.
It's tiny. Yeah, it's not big. I mean, it's like 3 and a bit MXR pedals.
It's only 1/5 the size of your face.
No, but I mean, that's about an MXR pedal, isn't it? So 1, 2, 3 and a little bit
Say
MXR
3.
pedals. 3 with plugs in between. Pancake plugs. So they're, close together.
Pancakes.
So, but I mean, that's in a nutshell. That's basically what this is. We will, like I said, it's a long video. There's lots of talking, but I mean, you got to do a lot of talking with this because there's so much to this. We will go more in depth in just the guitar side of things, just using it as an effects processor, using it as an amp sim, because there's a whole bunch of different amp sims in there as well. I will look into using more the modular side of things. Again, using the modular side of things to modulate guitar stuff. Because, I mean, that's where it gets kind of interesting once you can start doing that. The looper, there'll be a full look at the looper. Also at, when we're looking at amp sims, the different cabinets that come with it, plus also being able to load your own IRs into it now as well. So the sky's the limit with it, really.
Like I said, please hit like and subscribe, because if you hit subscribe, you'll know when there's more videos of this.
Yes.
Obviously, it's very in-depth. So I can't cover it all in just this video, obviously.
This was really just scratching the surface, and it's probably close to an hour, this video. So
big surface.
So anyway, let us know if there's anything in particular, anything specifically you want us to look at. Let us know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to kind of run through it all. Yeah. Also looking at, I mean, I think I mentioned it before, you can use it with an iPad with, for example, a Bluetooth dongle. So at gigs, you can have same control that you have on a computer, just touchscreen on an iPad, wirelessly, So also, actually, I will also look at the MIDI side of things and using MIDI controllers with it. That's another thing that will come as well in some of the videos. So yeah, tons of things. Do what he said before about the subscribing.
Yeah, check out links below to our Instagram, Facebook, and a podcast if you've got some time. And comments below, questions. Shoot them through, and thanks for hanging. We'll see you soon.
And thank you to Mod Devices for sending this out to us. And see you soon. Bye.